Okay, good morning everybody, and welcome to the Programmes and Resources Committee for Friday the 25th of April. Let's get started and down to business today. First of all, apologies for absence. We've got apologies from Linda Gruby and Andrew Gregory. Also, I guess technically Jill Heath as well, even though we said goodbye to her at the last authority meeting. She's still technically a member of this until the elections next week, so apologies from there. I also, normally we do this at the end of the meetings, but we're going to do this at the beginning of the meetings, is that it's also another member's last meeting with the authority today after 8 years. So I'm going to hand over to Ken Smith at this point.
Thank you, Janet.
So just in case you sneak out early, Becky, we thought we'd do it now.
Yeah. I mean, we noticed that Becky wasn't at the last authority meeting where we registered that both Jill Heath and Becky wouldn't be with us as they were no longer standing, wouldn't be standing for re-election. And we gave Jill a certificate of appreciation, but we weren't able to give you yours. So now we've got you captive for at least a few moments. I'd like to give you this, Becky. It's a certificate of appreciation from the authority for your 8 years as representative on the authority, during which you've been obviously a member of the authority. You've been a member of the Programme and Resources Committee, of Audit Resources and Performance, its predecessor. You're a member of the Governance Review Working Group, Appointments Process Panel, and you were member champion for Member Learning and Development, as well as being member of the Appeals Panel and of the Investigatory and Disciplinary Committee. It's worth noting that a good many of those never met, but it's the principle, I think, of your engaging with them that is most important. So I'd like to give you this as a token of our appreciation for your input to the National Park and furthering its purposes and duty over the 8 years you've been with us. So I'll even. Indeed. Only if you get good behaviour as well, which that's stretching for the authority, I think. But thank you very much indeed.
Thank you,
That's
Becky.
the idea.
We're not expecting you to make a speech, don't worry. Unless you want to. No. Okay, thank you, Ken, and thank you, Becky. Item 2 is minutes of the previous meeting from January the 24th. Are there any errors in the minutes that anybody would like to note? If not, could somebody move them? James Beresford and Charles Greaves to second. All in favour of approving the minutes from... thank you very much. Anyone against? Anyone abstain? No, unanimous, thank you. I've been informed there's no urgent business, so we can move on to public participation, and there is no public participation either. So item 5, members' declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest on any of these items today? Okay, thank you. Right, let's move into the items for decision now. Good, Teresa's here. Excellent. We've got 3 people management type items, all that have decision elements within them. And Teresa is going to introduce them, but we also have Natalie Webb here, whose role is people manager and will be people manager, and is Natalie's and Teresa are currently transitioning the roles between them, with Teresa stepping back within the next month. So, Teresa, if you'd like to take this forward, please. The first one is the Safeguarding Annual Report 2004, 24-25.
Hello, good morning. This is, if you like, a suite of annual reports that are coming, and they're all, if you like, managed by the people management team, but they all relate to our legal responsibilities for our people and those who access our services. So the first one is safeguarding, and this is the first annual report that has been brought in front of members. And that's part and parcel because we believe it is our legal responsibility, and it's everybody's responsibility at the authority, members, staff and volunteers. In August 2023, the outgoing head of engagement and previous lead on safeguarding did a bit of a gap analysis or a review of what measures we have in place to ensure safeguarding of children and vulnerable adults. And from that, there was a list of recommendations made. And to deliver those recommendations, a safeguarding working group was brought together. And that included myself as the designated safeguarding officer, plus we have also 2 deputy safeguarding officers, and that's Lorna Fisher and Rachel Lyon, and they both work operationally in engagement. And we worked through the recommendations. The group also included volunteering lead and HR lead, and also our people manager, people administrator for the DBS checks. And we met quarterly and pursued all these actions. And that is what is summarised within the annual report that's presented to you today. I'm just wondering if there's any questions on that. One of the key things we wanted to do as well was to ensure our measures were in place, but also to raise the profile of safeguarding as everybody's responsibility.
Thank you. So what we'd like to do is take the recommendations in 2 parts. The first one is to note the safeguarding report for the last 12 months. And then Teresa will then discuss the checklist and action plan for 25-26. So this first item is for noting. Does anyone have any comments or questions on this item for Teresa? Stony silence.
Great.
So,
Love it.
Okay, so we've duly noted it. So if we could move on to the safeguarding checklist and action plan. And this is, you introduce it, Teresa.
So what we recognised is that our actions, if you like, were driven by a gap analysis. And going forward, we wanted to make sure that we were working towards a recognised standard. So we've adopted those set out by NSPCC in their document, First Check. We recognised that we wanted to keep it proportionate, so it's not the complete standards, if you like, but we've adapted it to be proportionate to our organisation. And what we did is yesterday, the Safeguarding Working Group and the incoming members, so myself, I'm no longer going to be the designated safeguarding officer. That will now fall to Natalie going forward. And similarly, Rachel Lyon is stepping down from that, and Dave Cramp is going to be the deputy designated safeguarding officer. So we all met and we assessed the authority against the standards on the checklist, and we've identified actions going forward. And those actions will form the basis of the annual report that you'll get next year. Okay.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from committee members? You'll seem amazingly happy. Ruth and then Andy.
Just to say thank you very much, Teresa, for the work you and your colleagues have done on this. I support us as an authority aligning ourselves to a recognised scheme like the NSPCC, particularly because of the children, vulnerable adults expertise that they would have. So, I just want to say I welcome the work that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruth. And I think I'd reinforce that. For another organisation, I'm a trustee for. We've, as trustees, have been through the NSPCC training, and it's very, very comprehensive, and it's well recognised. So I think sticking to a known standard out there is a really solid idea. Andy.
Thanks. Thanks for the report. My questions are on education and training. You've got some really good ideas for up front, but what happens about continuous education and checks that people are up to date?
That is ongoing. We will be doing an audit every year. So we've committed to doing classroom training every year, as well as we have ELMS modules, a range of those. So we've got a child edition, a vulnerable adult edition, we've got safer recruitment, and part of the group is the people manager administrator, and part of his role will be to ensure that staff keep up to date on all their training.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, please? No? Okay. Do I have someone to move the recommendation to approve? James Beresford, Andy Nash to second. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. That's all in favour. So thank you for that, Teresa. If we could move on to item number 7, the equality plan. If I could ask you to introduce this item, please.
Thank you, yes. Now, this, just to be absolutely clear, this is still work in progress. This is the first time equality plan has been brought as well, but we are still working to refine it. As the authority, we are subject to the public sector equality duty, and a key element of the specific duties is that we need to identify and publicise our equality objectives every 4 years. So when we came to the end of our period in 2024, we did a bit of an assessment on that, and we recognised that for equality we have measures, but they are all quite separate across the organisation. And we were quite keen that that should actually be brought together so that we've got an overview of our equality actions, and also it helps with our focus, our staffing focus on that. And what we wanted to do, as recommended in the guidance, is that we wanted to make sure that we consulted comprehensively with our staff on what the equality objectives should be. And we started at our grassroots, which is with our workforce champions. And that is a consultative group that we've got that represent every team across the organisation. And we held a workshop, the senior management team, the HR team, and these workforce champions, looking at what we believe are the areas that we could have the biggest impact on. Version was then edited and taken in front of the wider management team, because what we recognised was that managers are key to the delivery of equality actions. And we edited it again, and we consulted twice on this matter to ensure it was meaningful, each time a version going back. And it was during one of those consultations that we felt that equality is one of our legal obligations, and it has such importance that, again, it should come in front of members to be scrutinised and commented upon. So we're at the stage. I had hoped that we would be able to discuss the equality plan last week at the wider management team again, because we're very conscious that the managers have to take ownership of what are the milestones, where's the evidence going to come from, what will be the deadlines for their actions, so that when we bring the action plan back to members, that they can see how robust the process is. Unfortunately, the wider management team, meant to be last week, is now next week, so I haven't got an update on that for you. But just to set out that the Equality Action Plan will be reported upon, hopefully annually going forward, so you can see that the work that we're undertaking in relation to equality.
Thank you, Teresa. So there's 2 recommendations here. One is to the update on the equality plan taken to us as approved, and the current version is noted. So it's a noting of the last 4 years and an approval of the equality plan for the next 4 years. I have some questions, but I'm going to open it to the committee first. Any comments or questions on this? There's quite a lot of data here, and I think it's actually a really interesting data set to dive into. Mandy?
I agree, it's an interesting data set, and I've got a few comments, questions. The first one was on the gender pay gap and the median table. First of all, that looks really impressive. I know a lot of corporate organisations that would love to have got down to the 2.2%. I was curious on what actions have been taken to achieve that, and is there any opportunity to reduce it even further?
Okay, there is an action plan that has supported this report, and one of the key things that we've done is around monitoring our applicants and ensuring that we have a gender balanced interview process. I'm not sure whether the measures we put in place have had a direct impact, but we have endeavoured to be very supportive of part-time working and flexible working, and I think that helps attract carers to the organisation. I think we've also recognised that part-time working can go all the way up to the senior roles. I myself am a part-time employee. So just by monitoring the data and by looking at things like we monitor where the gender of acting ups or honorariums, ensuring that opportunities are given across the board for that sort of development as well, development opportunities. Just a range of things. I can forward you, if you're interested, the action plan that we've undertaken.
And do you see any opportunity to reduce it even further, 2.2? That would be a huge success story.
It would, but I think, you know, with us having, we've now reached that we are 50-50 on our sex split, you know, so I think where you've got a lot of councils who have actually reached beyond the gender pay gap, that is because they are predominantly female-based. And I think moving towards that might be, I don't know. I can't really tell.
Can I?
Yeah. Go on, keep going.
Sorry. On the 50-50 gender split that you've mentioned, I noticed in the data that the genders, you offer male-female data for staff, but for volunteers you actually broaden the definitions out. Is that a conscious choice, or do you give staff the same opportunity to report against? Because I think it would be good from an optics point of view to show that those options are also given to staff and it's just zero. I think that would be quite helpful.
I'll take that as an action.
Thanks, Mandy. Any other comments, questions? James?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I think there's much to be welcomed in this paper and the progress that has been made currently. So a couple of things from me. Are some of the indicators currently that are reported on being migrated into the next plan? Not sure I can see that. So, for example, we're talking about, in particular, outreach with ethnic groups and disadvantaged communities. We talk about certain percentages that we think we've achieved this year. Well, I'm not entirely sure how we've measured that. And that probably reflects on where we are with the management plan stroke corporate plan. Our ability to measure, for example, the proportion of people visiting the park within an hour's distance, replicating the makeup of the population within that hour's distance. So I think we need to be sure that we have the ability to measure things properly, and that we should look at that critically and then migrate that into the update of the next year. I don't see that. I don't see that at the moment. And I think because this is reporting on activity elsewhere, particularly in the corporate plan, can we be sure that that which we are reporting on we can deliver given the cuts that we've faced, particularly in outreach? So I think, you know, when you come to look at this again, Teresa, which you will be doing next week, look at that continuity across the two pieces, making sure that what we've done currently is either ditched and there is a reason for ditching it, or it is carried forward. And secondly, let's be realistic about what we can do as an organisation. When we started this, we had an aspiration and we had a bigger team and a bigger resource to do it, and now we don't.
Thanks, James. Teresa, would you like to respond?
I think your comments are fair. I think that I'll go back to say that this is still work in progress, and I think that when we consulted with the wider management team on where we'd got to so far, there was a decision that this would be a good area to bring to members for scrutiny. It was recognised that there is still a bit of work to be done. You know, we've kind of brought this from people management grassroots up, and we're in discussions with the strategy and performance team around how do we get those links now, and how do we make sure, as you've said, that the key action owners are able to take it forward and evidence what they're doing.
Can I just come back very briefly?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Great. But I think now is the time, probably for the Chief Exec and the Senior Management Team, to look again at the measurements we are using and whether we have the ability to accurately measure some of these things. So, for example, the comment in here about the visitor survey, which indicates that we have seen a significant growth in Asian communities, and yet the comment says, but we're using a different methodology.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get consistency if you're using a different methodology. So my recommendation is probably for Emily's team to look very carefully at the measures that we're using. Thank you. Anyway.
Thanks, James. But of course, changing a methodology, if you move to a methodology that is providing better representation of the reality, as long as you stick to that then going forward, you can then do the comparator going forward, even if you can't do it going back.
No. We just need to be confident that we're using the right methodology.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to respond to any of that? Yes?
I agree, and I think this will definitely be an area for our strategy and performance team to work on.
Yeah. Thank you. I've just got a couple of questions. The first one is the table under paragraph 2.4. There's final row talks about the number of residents and other community stakeholders understanding and engaged in the development of strategic policies. And it says it's going to be measured by the success factors, a 50% increase in number and 50% increase in range by 2024. I don't know what range means.
I don't know in that context either. This was something that was provided to me.
Okay. I'm just, what's it measuring? Is it, could you come back and clarify what that means? Because we've got a 34% increase, but I don't know what range is. And the second one I had was in the report, it's the objectives. Appendix 1, Equality Plan 2024-28. The second paragraph on the first page, it says, we recognise that every person has one or more protected characteristics. Is that true? Does everybody have a protected characteristic?
Well, we've all got an age.
Yeah.
We've all got a sex.
Oh, I see, but it's not the boundaries of those.
No.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
mean, we've all got multiple
Okay.
protected characteristics.
Okay. Yeah. Mandy?
There was one other thing on Appendix 1, which is the 1.4 gender pay gap. I think there's a slight typo in the women earn £97 pence for every 100 that men. It's on page 29. Both of those have got a zero missing.
Thank you. So a small number of typos there, but thank you for explaining that we all have. But I understand now what we're saying about everybody having protected characters, because we all have an age, we all have a sex or gender, and we all have a race and whatever. Okay, thank you, that's really helpful. Any more questions for this item or comments? Ken?
Thank you, Chair, and welcome the report, as others have said. It's just a query, really. In paragraph 2.4, the table with the key performance indicators, the results in the first one, the final sentence, the PDMP continues to stand out from other national parks with the ethnicity of our visitors closely matching that of the region. I was just intrigued as to where the other national parks are in those terms. Are they hugely at variance, or is it a narrow variation? It was just, it triggered a question, that was all.
I'm afraid I don't have the answer to you for that one, Ken. I can go back to the source and see if they have an answer for you.
I think it would be quite interesting to know and see what we're doing differently. Or what,
I suppose in some respects, Chair, my comment is based on having been here for so long. Back in the 80s, there was a significant variation
Yeah.
in the relationship between our visitors and the surrounding areas, and that has obviously changed significantly,
Yes.
demonstrably, as one is
Yeah.
out and about. But the fact that other national parks don't seem to have closed that gap,
Yeah.
or what? So that was the interest.
yeah.
It could be down to location, Ken. You know, if you think Cairngorms first. Yeah.
Or the great public transport we have into the park. She says facetiously. Yeah. Schoolboy volunteer. Right. Thank you. I think we can move this item on. Would anybody be willing to move to recommend this item? Charles, thank you, and Ken Rustage to second it. All in favour of this item? Anyone against? Anyone abstaining? Thank you very much. Those are carried. Thank you very much. If we could move on to item number 8, the Occupational Safety and Health Annual Report now, please. And again, it's Teresa. And we've got 2 items here. And as with the safeguarding one, I want to take these 2 recommendations separately. The first one is to note the annual report from 24-25, and the second is to approve the health, safety and wellbeing objectives for 25-26. So, Teresa, over to you.
Thank you. Now, the annual report on health and safety has been coming before members for a number of years now. But what I would say about this report, this is the first annual report that we have, a year that we've conducted without an in-house health and safety advisor. The report summarises the work that has been taken on, and officers have had to adopt responsibility, and the responsibility for health and safety, whilst it is always sat with our managers, I think in reality this is the first year that they've really had to adapt and adopt that responsibility. I did say within the report I'd give a verbal update on the survey results. I think we've circulated the report table. The survey closed on Tuesday, so we've pulled together these figures for you. And I think what it shows you is that among staff, there is still confidence in health and safety. I think the well-being at work, which does have 16 strongly disagree and 21 disagree, probably is a reflection of where we are as an organisation going through organisational change. If you know, it's reflected also in March 23, when again we were also going through organisational change. And for the volunteer response, I think again, members can be reassured that our volunteers feel confident with our approach to health and safety.
Thank you, Teresa. Any questions and comments on the report from 24-25? Simon, then Mandy, then Charles.
It's just a question on the recording of incidents. Do we classify the cause of the incident? Do we also record the severity of the event, the injury that has been sustained?
We do record, but not in like a range of severity. So we do capture what the injury has been.
Okay. I mean, I think that would... I don't want to add to the bureaucratic burden, but I actually think that would be helpful just because it will focus in on those types of incidents that are likely to lead to severe outcomes rather than sort of slips and trips, which...
I think we're where I would say the measure is whether it qualifies for RIDOR or not. RIDOR. Now you're going to ask me to. It's I can't quite recall it, but it's
Injuries, diseases and dangerous occurrences.
right. So
Yeah,
there is a
there's
measure.
a
So if
list.
you have a broken bone, or you need to be hospitalised, or you're off work for 3 days, you know, there's quite a comprehensive list. So when we get an incident in and we have a look at the injury, if it qualifies for RIDOR, that we have to then submit a form to government to be recorded. We have not had a RIDOR this year. Okay.
Thanks, Simon. Mandy?
Just following on from that, on the tables, it would be really good to understand what the year-on-year trends are. There has been an increase of 36, I think it's noted in the report, but to understand which elements are increasing. Do you have any benchmarks? And then actions taken to reduce those areas that are increasing would be good to see.
This is the first year that we have reviewed our, that we have implemented from the review of our incident reporting. When I brought the report last year, there was an awful lot of interest in our incident reporting, and I think that led us to believe that perhaps we weren't as robust in our reporting as we could be. And so the forms were reviewed, a spreadsheet was created with various categories that we collate. It way too big to bring everything here, but I think at the moment this is our baseline year. We have information about the number of incidents we've had, but it's different classification, and therefore going to the previous point, it wouldn't be a good comparison. Going forward, I think that could be provided, yeah.
Thanks, Mandy. Charles?
Thank you. It's page 6 of the report, page 38 of the pack, and it's the second table, so it relates to sickness absence. So the paragraph beneath it says there were 16 staff with long-term absences in the year, 7 of which involved recovery from a planned operation. So my question's in relation to the other 9. So could you just give an idea what the other 9 long-term absences, what the nature of them was, what action and support's being taken?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I do know that I think we had 2 stress-related in there, which has impacted on the paragraph below. Can I refer to Natalie?
I've got it written down. So we had things like bereavements, where people lost someone that sometimes has a long-term absence. There was a back pain. There was a couple of stress. But I think what we were just pulling out is predominantly it was operations and planned operations. But there are some stress, anxiety, and bereavement in there as well.
So I guess so for some of those, there may be a need for intervention, for action and support. Other ones, it's something that's happened. So what kind of practical support do we give to people to get them back into work?
Sorry, are we talking about planned operations or what have you?
No, I'm thinking more.
Stress.
So I would say probably the stress ones and the back ones. Are we providing occupational therapists? Are we having helping people with counselling, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we've got a full menu of tools available to us, but we do refer our long-term absences to the occupational health unit for recommendations. Those with who go off and then it goes on to stress, or if it's a stress related, we have a stress risk assessment tool that we undertake so that before they come back into the workplace, we've assessed what are the hazards that are causing this illness. We have employee assistance programme, which is available to staff 24/7, that they can call and get access to a counsellor. I think part of that programme, they also have access to a GP. You know, so we are putting in place measures for staff to access. We also have coaching, resilience coaching that we offer up, and that's a one-on-one with clinical psychologists. You know, we've learnt a lot over the years, and part and parcel of what we do is assessed by the Investors in People Health and Wellbeing Award, and we have had silver in the past, so we know that we're working to a standard around health and wellbeing.
Thank you. Any other
Thank you.
questions on Ruth?
Just a point of clarification, actually, that was raised by what you said. We have a separate bereavement leave.
Yes, we have compassionate leave.
Right,
Yes.
okay, because that's kind of very different from
Yeah,
sickness, isn't it?
Yes, but what we found is that in some instances the compassionate leave isn't enough, and that the staff are not fit to be at work. And if they're not fit to be at work, what is that cause? And that's when we get a doctor's note that says it's anxiety or depression or whatever. So that is where it kicks into being sickness.
Okay, so that does need to be clear, doesn't it? Because if it's a choice to take extra time off, that needs to be presumably through unpaid leave.
Yes, I mean, we work very closely with staff who are off with bereavement. You
Yeah,
know.
I mean, obviously we have
Yeah, we
sympathy
do.
for it. We understand
yeah.
it's
and
very...
it is down to staff, you know, but
Yeah.
at some point, if they run out of what leave is available to them,
Yeah.
or they they choose not to use their leave entitlement, you know, and they are not fit to be at work, it is their choice to go and get a sick note.
Right, okay, so it is rigorously enforced with sick notes?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay, thank you. That's just helpful to know.
After 7
Okay.
days, sick notes have to be
After 7 days?
7 days.
That seems quite long to me, I have to say, from my professional
It's
experience.
standard public sector.
Ah, okay.
You've worked in the wrong
Is
sector, Ruth.
Oh, I'm obviously in the wrong sector. I think I get 3.
Mandy, final question before we ask this to be approved.
Yeah, it was just on the data point around the sickness absence. Is there any context around whether this is a good level of absence, a bad level of
Across the local area or across national parks or
How
us?
do you benchmark yourselves? I suppose
We-
is my question.
Yeah.
That's not clear in
Yeah.
this either.
No, again, we can provide that data, and maybe perhaps going forward we will provide you with a trend. But we can compare ourselves with other national parks. We can and we compare ourselves. We're a member of the Derbyshire Personnel Officer Group, that is the local authorities within the area, and I would say we perform well on. Is that the right thing? Perform well on a low figure. Yes.
Thanks, Ruth. There is one more question or comment. Ken Rustage.
Yeah, I mean, talking about the staff, presumably the staff would be employed by Green Book
Yes.
conditions of service,
Yes.
and therefore that will, you know, entitle them if they're off sick to. I think it's like 3 months full pay, 3 months half pay. After
Ultimately,
is it
it's
4
6
years?
months full pay, 6 months
as
half
in-
pay. Yeah.
That's very good. That, thank you.
Thank you. Can we move towards approving this, and then I'd like to move on to the objectives for next year, unless it's a burning question or comment, Charles.
I'd just like to express a vote of thanks to Teresa for all her work with the authority over the years.
We haven't got there yet. We've still got another recommend. You got in before me.
Just a bit too quick, weren't I? But never
You've still
mind.
got to discuss next year's objectives yet. Don't steal my thunder. Right. Can I have a mover for the annual report for thank you for this year? Mover, right, Ruth to move, Ken R to second. All in favour? And then can we just look at the objectives for next year as well, which is Appendix 3. These we do need to approve rather than note. So are there any... There's a lot of... Thank you for all the audit data as well, thank you. So this is Appendix 3 we're now looking at, which are the health, safety and wellbeing objectives for next year. Are there any comments or questions from members on these? It's page 47 of your pack. Okay. If we've got no comments or questions, would anyone like to move to approve them? Ken Smith to move and Andy Nash to second. All in favour of these objectives for next year? Anyone against? Anybody abstaining? Okay, right, so those are approved. Teresa, before you go, we'd just like to, nobody's aware of this, thanks Charles, but we're aware this is the last time you'll be seeing members, I believe, unless you're at the authority meeting on the 9th of May, but this is the last time we'll see you at PNR. I just want to say thank you for all the diligence and hard work you've put in over the many years you've been here. And I know you're not retiring, you're taking some time off and to spend with your horse, I believe, but also to move into what we discussed before as a period of preferment, which those of us who aren't ready to get old call retirement. It's where we decide what we're going to do and do what we want to do. So thank you ever so much for your support to this committee, and enjoy your summer. Thank you. James.
You did say preferment, not interment.
Interment. Well, sometimes you can make bad choices, can't you? Yeah, you can make bad choices. As Becky said, you get less for manslaughter doing some of these roles. Yeah. Thank you. Right, thank you very much, and thank you, Natalie, and we'll see you again at some stage, Natalie. We're just going to go into the final item for approval, and then we're going to have a break before we go into the two substantial programme items for this committee. So this is item number 9, access for all funding. And welcome. Sue, have you met members of the committee? Would you like, just in case there's anyone here who doesn't know you, can you introduce yourself and say what your role is, and then briefly introduce the paper?
Okay. My name is Sue Smith. I'm Access and Rights of Way Officer, working in the Rangers team. My key areas of work deal with the statutory responsibilities of the authority, but also delivering access, accessibility and active travel.
Thank you. Do you just want to say a word or two about what the ask is of the committee?
The report sets out details of a further year of funding from DEFRA for the Access for All programme. This has been offered and is for 255,000 of capital funding. This could continue with the delivery over the last 3 years for more miles, more places and more mobility. All funding received under this programme has been fully spent over the last 3 years. A summary of the Year 3 delivery is attached to the report in Appendix 1, and there will also be an update in the Welcoming Place report. So the report seeks delegated authority for acceptance of the funding and for up to an amount of 350,000 to cover the eventuality of any additional funding that might be available. Authority is also sought for an exemption to standing orders relating to improvements undertaken in partnership with highway authorities.
Thank you. Thank you. So the ask of the committee is to approve the receipt of up to £350,000 for undertaking Access for All work. And it needs to come to this committee because of the delegation schemes in terms of amounts of money. And then the items, the recommendations beyond that are the sort of technical process recommendations to ensure that the officers aren't going to have to keep coming back to get each element approved. Are there any questions or comments for Sue? James, first of all, please.
Thank you. So this is Year 4? Right, okay. What are we going to be spending it on?
More miles, more places, more mobility, but
general
effectively,
terms, right.
in general terms. We have been developing work on active travel, which is looking at the trails as being our key routes. We will be looking at more miles without styles, But again, looking at accessibility hubs and how we provide for people at key places.
Well, I mean, this is fantastic. It really is. I think my subsequent question, though, is we're doing all of these things. Is there any money from DEFRA that allows us to promote this? Because you can build all these things without giving people confidence that we're actually, these things are here for them to enjoy and enjoy their improved access. It's a shame. That's all I can say. You need to know that we're doing, people need to know, groups need to know, individuals need to know that these facilities are now in place for them, otherwise they won't be used.
Sue.
If I could.
Yes,
yeah.
of course.
Yeah, the funding is for both infrastructure and information. So when I report later on in the meeting, I'll be telling you about some of the information about how people can feel more welcome within the national park.
So this item does link to the welcoming place item we'll be looking at after the break, so thank you, Sue. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I think they're all wanting to have a break, you know. Can I have somebody to move the recommendation? Charles Ken Rustage to second. All in favour? Anybody against? Any abstentions? So all in favour, so thank you. We approve the recommendations in the paper, and we look forward to hearing how it's being spent and the impact of that. So thank you, Sue. Right, I did promise we'd have a break before we go into the substantive programme items for this committee, which will be landscape and nature recovery and the welcoming place items. So if we can have a 10-minute break and get started again at 11 o'clock. And we've got a range of officers here to present to us on these items. So we'll see you in 10 minutes. Thank you. Right, I'm hoping you heard my assertive bell there to say we'd like to get started again. Are we recording again? Thank you, Sarah. So if we could move on to item number 10, please, landscape and nature recovery aim. For those members who may need reminding, the Programmes and Resources Committee covers two types of items. These second two items are updates on the management plan aims for the last 12 months. And there are 4 of those, and we're looking at 2 today. We've been looking at one of these every 12 months. And Sue Fletcher will be leading this item, but we also have 3 officers with us. We have Sarah Bird on nature recovery, Rebecca Newman on FIPL, and Jackie Ragg on the Morridge Hill project. So welcome to you all. Sue, I'm going to leave it to you, but they will be giving us a presentation at the outset, which I've asked to keep to 20 minutes. And they've been warned that if they don't, they'll be getting very hard Paddington stares from me to ask them to be succinct. But there's a lot to celebrate in this item, and I think we as members can really enjoy hearing about the success and the huge progress that's being made in this area. And that's one of my key aspirations for these items, is that we're able to do that, while also raising our understanding of these areas, and also the ask of us as members to help the officers and take some of these things forward. So, Sue, over to you.
Thank you, Janet. Good morning, members. Nice to see you all. And I'm still practicing. I've had to resort to glasses, and now when I'm reading, I can't see you. So bear with me. There'll be a lot of taking them off and putting back on again. So, landscape and nature recovery, aim 2. You've got the report. That's really a summary. It's not everything, but it's a summary of the activities that the authorities either led or been involved in. And Janet asked me just to do a little bit of scene setting, particularly in terms of the issues facing farmers and land managers. But then we'll just hand on, hopefully seamlessly, to Sarah and through the rest of the team. And I should just make one point. I did spot, I don't know if anybody else spotted the mistake. I thought Ken might do, because he usually does, but there was an errant paragraph which shouldn't have been there, and that is paragraph 3.44 in the report. So that needs to be removed and minuted. Apologies for that. So, there was a raft of announcements basically following in the budget, if you like, in the autumn, that has had quite a profound impact on our farmers and land managers, not only ours, but across the country. I'm not going to go through them all, but it was quickly followed in November by the capital grant scheme being suspended, and that was because DEFRA had spent up. It was also then followed by, in December, by the pausing, if you like, of the Sustainable Farming Incentive. That was getting such good uptake that, again, DEFRA then realised it was going to be overspent, and it pulled it. And what really got people upset was all the paperwork said any changes, there'd be 6 weeks' notice. There wasn't. It happened virtually overnight, and that's an unprecedented sort of step. There are just a couple of quotes there from the press that I thought were interesting. I mean, the good news is for the moment that stock prices are good, milk prices are good, but they're obviously subject to variances. DEFRA has also announced a farm profitability review, which is going to be led by Baroness Minette Barbat, ex-NFU chair, basically. There's also some additional There's also some additional work going on around the sustainability of upland farms, which would be really interesting to see what comes out of that. The sort of other bit of good news, but it's only a likely, is the reset, as it's being termed, of SFI, is likely to focus on nature outputs, marginal areas, so that means upland areas like the Peak District, and also what sorts of groups of farmers or landowners might be eligible. So there's some thinking about, should really large landowners not be eligible? We don't know yet, so there's a lot of influencing to be done on that. Ultimately, though, the hard impact is that that's really not confidence and trust in the government and the direction of travel. So we're trying to mitigate that as best we can and still encourage people to hold on, but they will have to make business and financial decisions. So that was just a quick run through. I'm going to hand over to Sarah now.
Thank you, Sue. Good morning, members.
Click through the slides on that.
So as a quick reminder, government have legislated to recover nature, and local nature recovery strategies are a strategic way for government to look how to do this. So local nature recovery strategies will have a description of the area, usually a county, a list of priorities, a list of ideally practical actions on the ground, known as measures, and 2 maps. So a map showing designated sites, and then a map showing areas that could become important for nature, which will be overlaid with any mappable measures, so those actions. And there's various different methodologies that have been employed by each LNRS to do this. So each county or combined authority area will have an LNRS, and as you can see, the 6 that will cover the Peak District and the authorities that have overall responsibility for writing and mapping those. So we as a National Park Authority are a supporting authority, and that gives us 2 opportunities to object or support during the process of production. And it would be great if members could support in looking at those opportunities to incorporate as much of the national park as possible into those opportunity areas in particular. So I'm the lead for engaging with LNRSs for consistency, but with various other colleagues involved, including Virginia Priestley as a member. So none of our LNRSs have been published yet, but we do expect most will be published by early 2026. So the points in green are what we've known for a while that LNRSs will be part of, including biodiversity net gain and planning. In December last year, DEFRA released some more information on how they foresee LNRSs might be used. And you can see those in orange on the screen. And they include things like guiding action choice for the sustainable farming incentive, linked to what Sue's just been talking about, potentially landscape recovery projects, and most notably, you can see at the bottom, protected landscapes. And we're already working on how they might work with the National Park Management Plan and the local plan. They also released some information on ways that they might be used, including targeting for the sustainable farming incentive and countryside stewardship, identifying areas that could count to 30 by 30, and perhaps most interestingly, informing private finance, which we've already been hearing that some potential funds will be looking to do this. They also set out ways that they envisage LNRSs won't be used, including requiring or mandating anyone to do anything. They won't restrict development, won't designate, won't restrict funding in unmapped areas, and won't determine regulation, but they can be used to inform some of these things. And now just a quick update on the Nature Recovery Plan, which members approved last year. So just as a reminder, it's designed to address challenges, is split into 10 themes, and each theme has a number of aims within it. So to take the Nature Recovery Plan forward, we are almost imminently going to be trialling an approach to mapping, which is something that we haven't done before. Mapping's tended to be complex and isn't particularly popular with delivery partners. So instead we'd like to produce some guidance maps based on landscape character types and existing strategies and landscape recovery areas, including the Morridge Hill Country project. We're also hoping to produce something more visual as well to sit alongside these, and that's already partly being worked up as part of the landscape recovery pilots as well. And finally, we've also started work on a delivery plan, so working through the process that you can see on the screen there, mostly. And we've already started testing this approach with Forestry Commission for the trees theme, and we'll look to identify gaps, which might be gaps in knowledge, supply of product, skills gaps, or lack of demonstration sites. Thank you very much, members. I'll now hand over to Rebecca.
Hi. So this is, we're just entering into now the 5th year of Farming Protected Landscapes. We didn't actually get to hear about that we would have a delivery budget until very recently. So you can imagine it's all go within the team. What I just wanted to emphasise here is we're talking about this within AIM2. We also have a remit for people, so for access, for volunteering, for education. We also have a remit for climate, and also within the place theme, it's about historic structures, which we are talking about a little bit within this aim, but also about support for nature-friendly, sustainable businesses. So it sort of addresses all of the National Park Management Plan aims and 9 of the 11 objectives. So it's sort of across the whole of what we're doing. I can't get it to move on. Oh, there we go. So very briefly, just a reminder about FIPL. We've now, with this year, we'll have had a delivery budget of 7.4 million. There's 6 of us working on FIPL, which works out about 4.6 full-time equivalents. And then the local assessment panel, again, includes Ginny as a member of the authority. 457 projects now, so quite a big suite of stuff. And I can't move it on. Just a slide just showing a really good range across both the project outcomes and across visually and across geographically. So the appendix in your report was the case studies document that we produced for 2023-24. This presentation, I'm really going to talk about how FIPL has allowed both projects with individual farmers and projects with groups of farmers and community groups to develop over that time. And I think that's really significant that it is only with a programme that has time and with the consistency of advice that we get the best results. And then the picture on the right is of Grindon Limekiln, quite an unusual situation here where the landowner wasn't able to bankroll the project. So the National Park Authority became the applicant and the agreement holder. And the Limekiln, phase 1 at least, is as good as finished. There's a little bit of work to do, which we'll do as a sort of new project in this year. So Minninglow Grange, we use this actually as an example of what FIPL could deliver even before FIPL existed. And it's a really good demonstration of how confidence in the scheme can grow and how farmers' ambitions can grow. So in the first year, restoration of a single hay meadow, a little permissive path. Now this year we're working with 30 hectares of hay meadow restoration, which will be transformative both for the landscape and involves a sort of real transformation of that farm business. And alongside that, the permissive path to the top of Minninglow Hill, one stretch of that is now being made accessible to trampers. So he's looking at the whole suite of delivery across the National Park Management Plan aims and the FIPL aims, and coming up with something that I say is transformative. Upper Booth Farm, this is a National Trust tenancy in the Edale Valley, and in the first year they really looked at how do they deliver for nature and the landscape, but also support a sort of new way of thinking about farming, so supporting regenerative farming. Then it moved on to what can we do better for nature conservation, and we're supporting the move to traditional rare breed cattle and conservation grazing. And then this last year, hay meadow restoration again, and then how do we diversify the
diversify the farm business to allow us to support nature, but also maintain a viable farm business. And this has involved the restoration of a building in the yard and the installation of vending machines to deliver goodies, sweets and ice cream to people who go past on the Pennine Way. Next one. Blake Brook. Another interesting example of how to work with a whole group of farmers, but also with Staffordshire Wildlife Trust. This has been a really difficult area of the National Park for a long time, with strained relationships between farmers and between farmers and conservation organisations. And FIPL has allowed that to move on and deliver both SSI condition and better relationships all round, and a whole suite of people delivering for nature and the landscape. So there's been two main projects which have been delivered by Staffordshire Wildlife Trust. One looking at low-key interventions into the Blake Brook to jumpstart the process of rewilding the stream. And then secondly, surfacing a footpath which was almost impassable. And that's involved digging a ditch on one side, draining it, and this is all across multiple ownerships. And then alongside that, 3 or 4 other FIPL projects that have contributed to that whole picture of landscape restoration in this area. Hayfield Farmers. Hayfield Farmers didn't exist at the beginning of FIPL. It didn't exist 2 or 3 years ago. It began with a single event that we were to fund through Sustainable Hayfield, an event focused on carbon and carbon auditing. And that's grown to a fledgling farmer group, and it's involved 5 carbon audits being delivered on farms in the Hayfield area. This has used the Environmental Quality Mark, so the community interest company that's got affiliations with the National Park Authority. And really interestingly, what they've done in Hayfield, which is more than what's happened with other carbon audits in the National Park, they've looked at not only the carbon balance on the farm as it is now, but also what it could be if they implemented change. And that could be change either in the farm business or change in terms of the habitats on the farm. And then the 5th farm has asked EQM to produce a poster so that she can spread out the messages about carbon and carbon storage and sequestration to the people who visit her farm through educational visits, and that's schools and the general public. Macclesfield Wild. A little community group in Macclesfield. Southwest Peak goes to the fringes of Macclesfield. And in this area of the National Park, we still have a population of willow tits, Britain's most threatened bird. And here, again, this has been something that's grown. It began with a project just focusing on survey. It's grown to more projects. So one project in partnership with the RSPB, looking at willow tits all the way around the southwest fringe of the National Park. And then another project with United Utilities in Macclesfield Forest that's looking at the potential for introduction of beavers to create the habitat that will support the willow tits. That's me really, but I couldn't bear not putting in these slides of Lower Barn Farm, and I checked the, last night I checked the Countryfile one, so it's the 15th of December, you need to all watch Countryfile, it's still on iPlayer, and it's a real inspirational farmer in Wild Boar Clough talking about the management of the farm for nature and his connection with nature and the landscape. Thank you. You might manage to make it work.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not feeling very faithful right now to this one. Yeah, okay. Morning, members. I'm Jackie Ragg, Morridge Hill Country Project Manager. We are now approaching a year into my role when I started in the project in July. The project started in May, so we were 2 months in when I took the reins. Just a short update on landscape recovery in general. Across England, there's 54 landscape recovery projects, of which there are around 1 projects that are currently, some of them are going into their agreement period now, looking towards implementation. And in round 2, there's 34 projects covering 250,000 hectares of England, so a real contribution to the 30 by 30 targets for the government. Our project sits in that family of projects, and we have been assured by the government that the government remains committed to those landscape recovery projects and that they want all those projects to go through to implementation. So we're in that development phase now, and we've just changed the project area recently to include an additional 344 hectares of land and added in another 7 farms. Some of those farms, their actual farmsteads aren't in the project, but they've got land that's actually been added in to support that increased contiguity across the area. So the blue areas are the additions that have joined the project area. So we've now got 2,900 hectares to work with, and we've been very much in the development stage. So those farmers are signed up to look at options, and when we get to the end, hopefully they will all go into that implementation phase with us. But at this point, it's very much about discovering what's possible for them and what we can get out of it for those farms to support them with that viable business model as well. Just a little bit of a timeline of where we've been so far. I'll be honest, it doesn't feel like we've done that many months of work, but we've been really, it's been pedal to the metal really since July. We've really been in fact-finding mode about the landscape, understanding actually what the options are at a landscape scale, and really zoomed out approach for that initial bit of engagement. We've got a lot of SSSI in the project area, so we've spent a lot of time engaging with Natural England, which we hope will smooth the process when we get down to the kind of permitting and consent stage. We're now in the process of engaging. We've had some interviews with farmers from our farm advice team, but we're now in the process of engaging with the more detailed level in terms of looking at how their farm sits in the landscape and what those options could be for those. We just had the first one of those land management plan meetings yesterday with one of the private farms that are in the project. We've been doing moorland surveys. We were starting in July was quite a challenge in terms of seasonality, but we did actually really manage to just scrape in and get some moorland surveys started just before bird breeding season this year. We've managed to get about 60% of the peaty areas of the project surveyed, and now we're looking at getting the in-by areas, which is about 800 hectares, surveyed as well, to look at what the options are there. DEFRA require a baseline for the whole project area to submit, and that submission date at the moment is February 2026. At that point, we will need to have that full baseline to support them to work out their value for money model and actually decide whether to give us the go-ahead. We've got to decide as well whether we give it the go-ahead, and also all the farmers have. So there's a lot of complexity in this process, and that is quite a challenge in this time scale. So we will be coming back and approaching authority about these options, and we hope that will be around November, when we've actually had some time to seek external support potentially from legal advice and internal support from the legal team at the park. There are 4 other national parks delivering landscape recovery, so we are working with them as well to sort of make sure that we're all collaborating to make those decisions and look at the options together. It's very difficult to do the engagement to the level that I would like to in terms of this project because of the time scale, but we have done a substantial amount of engagement, and there's some examples there. We've been engaging with wider community groups like Manifold Can and Moorlands Climate Action, RSPB, and also with the statutory bodies and the farmers. So there's quite a lot there. We just launched our new farmer newsletter, which went out just last week. And we've done some really great, interesting site visits to see what the options might be and chat to the farmers on the ground as well. Just a journey of maps. It's been a lot of mapping. This is the first map that went in with the application.
Just to say, those members who went on the tour when this all started to kick off at the time of the application, that was the map that I stuck up to the Harris fencing.
So you might just have some contextual cues there now. Thanks for bringing back everyone's memory there, Sue. So that where we've come from in terms of that map is we've now got the AI land cover map, which has been on various iterations and now is getting more and more refined by our knowledge of the landscape and kind of cross-referencing that with what's coming out. The project area is the red outline that you can see, but where I've talked about the peatland surveys, a lot of the purple areas are kind of showing where those kind of peatland surveys are. It's going to be very useful to monitor the dynamic changes in the landscape. We want to let the landscape change in a dynamic way. We want to let scrub encroach in certain areas, and we want a bit of flexibility with that, and using the AI map is going to really help us to monitor that and kind of keep people relaxed about the scrub in the landscape generally. We've also been working on the opportunities map, which is showing what those opportunities are on a landscape scale and getting those into the GIS software for engagement with statutory bodies and farmers, and looking at refining that now with the farmers. We've also had some output from UKCEH, which are doing species modelling based on the AI land cover map and based on our ambitions for the project area. This particular map shows predicted adder activity in the project area, not adder presence, but predicted activity based on the habitats that are there. So shows some opportunities for species that could be there that aren't necessarily being represented due to multiple factors. But the big black area is the area where they won't be. So without help, it just shows that they might not actually colonise this area naturally. We've also got natural capital maps coming out from support with Cranfield University and the strategy and policy team driving that. This particular map shows predicted carbon storage in tonnes per hectare in the project area. And now we're going out collecting peat depth measurements. We can feed into that with some real data and kind of further increase the accuracy of that mapping. That's the end of the maps, and that's the end of my section.
Thank you. So do you need to wrap up? Or?
Well, I think the only thing I was going to end with, apart from to say thank you, and I think that just gives you a little bit more detail than what was in the report or in the appendices, and obviously we can move into any questions or comments from members. But it was just to summarise the ask, as Sarah said. I think there's a real opportunity for our members, those county members, to actually seek to influence still those NRSs and really try and get the majority of the national park as a priority for further nature recovery and those funding opportunities. And the second ask is really around any opportunities you all may have in terms of meeting MPs or in terms of saying and really putting across that picture of what the range of public goods in terms of nature, climate, people and place that this upland farming area can deliver, but the fact that they will need to be properly rewarded to not only continue to do what they are delivering, but that ask that we're putting forward, that they deliver a lot more as well. So I just think that was useful to end.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And thank you ever so much to Sarah, Rebecca and Jackie for your presentations as well. I think they were fascinating. And the range of work that's happening and the progress that's being made is fabulous. It's time to open it up to member comments, views, discussion. Ken Rustage to start with, please.
Yeah, a couple of questions really on the endangered species, you know, that particular bird, and talks about the adders, although there doesn't seem to be any adders. Could you actually bring in some species? There wasn't any adders, and there might be, but it seems, you know, that, sadly, so many of the species probably inadvertently have been lost. But could you bring, it's a bit like the eagle in Scotland, isn't it, where, that's been introduced and they sort of hide it away and don't tell people where it is. But I just wonder if there's any plans further, not just for now, but really for future generations. Thank you.
That's a really good question, Ken, and you read our minds really. As a project, we are looking at those options for what species could be translocated or reintroduced into the project area. And the Southwest Peak, you can just see that it's really good adder habitat if when you're out there. And the kind of historic management is possibly a reason why they're just not present. The last record, I think, was 40 years ago of adders, but I did talk to somebody yesterday who said they thought they'd seen an adder in on their farm, so you just never know that they might actually be present. But yes, definitely, we'll be looking at that as part of the development phase, and we've got some meetings coming up to discuss that with Staffordshire Wildlife Trust as well.
And of course, those of us who are frightened of snakes, it has a different use. We can avoid those areas. Any other questions, Simon?
Yeah, Thanks very much for the report, and obviously a huge amount of really good work going on here. I suppose as a member, the difficulty I have is just understanding what impact all of this work is actually having. The resolution talks about nature recovery aims and targets, and I couldn't see anything actually in this paper about targets, and certainly nothing about progress against those targets. We've got the three sort of very high-level KPIs, area of priority habitats, area restored peat, tree canopy cover. Why are we not reporting against those so that we can actually track what we're delivering? And the only thing in here that I could see was the Woodland Trust, 81 hectares of woodland, which is actually useful. It'd be useful to know how much that costs, but at least it's telling you what impact their work is having. We don't appear to have any of that. And there's some very obvious areas where we could be setting targets. When using that AI mapping, it would be very easy to map the areas affected by ash dieback as an example, and then monitor how much replanting is taking place against those so that we could track performance. But more importantly, given how resource constrained we are, it would just give us a measure of what works and what doesn't. At the moment, we are undoubtedly doing a lot of good work, but some of it will be delivering better value for money than others. And unless we know what actual impact we're having versus the pounds that we're putting into it, we won't know how to target our efforts. And I think the AI mapping, that is such a powerful tool, if we get this right, to really track the delivery against these objectives.
Sue, do you want to start?
Shall I start? So it's a really good question, as ever. In terms of the big picture, one of the intentions is it's in the management plan and it's in the ambition for the Peak District Nature Recovery Plan is to develop not only the guidance map but a delivery plan with targets. However, that's slightly got derailed in terms of timescale for two things in how my mind works. One is the Protected Landscapes Targets and Outcomes Framework, which is produced, we must have just one set of targets eventually. And the other thing is the impact of the time it's taken to service 6 developing LNRSs with the team that we have, which we can't underestimate that impact. So beyond that, we do have some figures in terms of the work of both FIPL and the other farm advisors in terms of, which we could put in this report, we didn't this time, in terms of the amount of species-rich grassland, for example, that's been retained or enhanced. If members would like that, we can add more of that in. But I don't know, it looked like, Rebecca, you wanted to come in and say something?
Only to say that we are tasked by DEFRA every year, and it's got to be done by the end of May, to fill in headlines. I think there's 49, so each project is scrutinised for 49 different headlines. And that includes a whole load of measures which are then linked over to both the target of 30 by 30 and to all of the TOFs, the Targets and Outputs Framework. So, there's a whole load of things that are measured in terms of hectareage or metres or numbers or whatever. And then alongside that, we're collecting that because that contributes to a particular TOF or because it contributes to 30 by 30. So there is an effort to do that with individual projects. Obviously, that only relates to individual projects, and there's a multitude of other organisations also delivering stuff inside the national park. So there's sort of two challenges, isn't there? It's how we collect it in a meaningful manner at a project-by-project basis, but also how do we collect it at that sort of strategic level, which is where the AI mapping could really help.
Yeah.
Can I just comment just before you come back, Simon? Also in terms of what members see, the current system is that we look at the programmes here, the management plan aims, and understand the work that's going on behind them. In terms of delivery against targets and objectives relating to the management plan and this aim, that goes to a full authority meeting. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, but there's no point in just having a description of the inputs without also having a description of what the outputs are.
Yes.
And this is all about inputs.
Yes.
And it's, I mean, this is not a criticism, but it reads like a sort of series of anecdotes because you can't actually see what is coming from it. And just, I think your point was exactly right, that you need that big strategic overview for what everybody is doing. But we specifically, as an authority, need to demonstrate the value that we're creating, because that will strengthen our case when we go back and bid for more.
Yeah.
Particularly on something like Morwich.
Yeah.
I just think that just picking up what you said, Janet, I think that's one of the dilemmas in writing this report for the Programmes and Resources Committee, because the other figures on the grassland and where we put those figures in goes into the National Park Management Plan reporting. So it is tricky in terms of getting the right balance, otherwise we are repeating the same information in both formats. So I think there is a bit of sorting out of that to do as we go forward, and I see it's that big picture. We want one set of targets that we're all aiming, and that has to be through the National Park Management Plan, ultimately.
Simon, can I just say, watch this space and come to the authority meeting on the 9th of May. Thank you. Other comments, questions?
I think it's just worth mentioning as well, Simon, for all the landscape recovery projects, we all have to develop a monitoring evaluation plan for the whole implementation phase, and that includes you will not be short of data. I will just say that. I've seen the spreadsheets. It's vast, and we'll be needing to do that for the whole project area and for monitoring and evaluation for all the outcomes that we want from Morwich Hill. So that is part of what we're developing now. So we won't be able to submit without that rigorous plan.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions. The first one relates to the consultation on the land use framework, which I think closes tomorrow, fairly soon. And I note that we've been working with National Parks England to put in a combined response at a full National Parks level. Will we as members get to see that consultation response?
So you're right. The various National Park England groups, whether it's the Transport one, whether it's the England Agricultural Rural Development Group one, have all been working and feeding into National Parks England. So I'm aware of what we've fed in through one of those groups. It's also through the Ecology Group. I haven't seen the final version. The deadline is today.
Yeah.
I've seen it's there. It's available, the final version, so we can send that round.
We could send that round.
Yeah. I think it would be useful to get the national sense of what we as national parks feel about that land use consultation. I've got a second question, which is a bit more detailed. It's about the local nature recovery strategies, and there seems to be it seems to be sort of soft influencing rather than hard influencing in terms of what we're doing. But there seems to be a lot of bureaucracy and admin involved in, the local councils, and then we're sort of overlaid by the national park and so on. So how much extra effort is all this sort of duplicate admin bureaucracy taking? Because wouldn't it make more sense for us to just have our own local nature recovery strategy out with the councils?
Thank you. It's taking a lot of extra effort. There are multiple meetings and groups to service as part of the 6 local nature recovery strategies, and we're almost unique in that position of having 6. So it's a lot of work, a lot of time and a lot of input, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to do a nature recovery plan first before the LNRSs began properly. And that was ideally our main mechanism for feeding into the process. Because the guidance has been delivered in stages throughout the process, it's been quite difficult for all of us, not just us as a National Park Authority, but the other local authorities who are also supporting authorities, to really get our heads around what it is that we're supposed to be doing, what options do we have within that as to how to do it. And each of the 6 LNRSs that cover the Peak District is doing things in a slightly or very different way, which makes it quite difficult to have that consistency of approach of, we could just, so that the one that's at the forefront is Greater Manchester, and it would be easy to just replicate what we've done with them with the others, but because they're all using slightly different methodologies and slightly different ways of doing it, that's not really possible. So what we're trying to do is to maximise the time that we input to get the most influence and to make them work best for the national park, which has been quite challenging.
Thank you. Am I guessing that also the consultations we've got out for potential changes to how local authorities, what local authorities we have where, and how many levels of authority might also increase that complexity?
It could potentially.
Or it might change the dynamic of who we're dealing with and why. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Sue and then Ken.
Just on that, just that I wouldn't like members to think that there wasn't an enormous amount of effort way before LNRS's system was fully developed in terms of the previous CEO and certain members. I can't remember if it was our current chair of the authority or not, but there was an enormous amount, visits with ministers to try and influence. We were saying, this is the Peak District effect. We will end up with 6. It would be working much better if we had 1. Unfortunately, we were unsuccessful, and the main reason cited for that was they wanted the same approach across the whole country. So I just thought it was useful to share.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Ken Smith.
Thank you, Chair. In a sense, building on the comments that you've made, Chair, the map on page 68, which shows the different counties, and there are 2 sets of serious concerns and 1 significant concern, and I presume the serious concerns are on the back of consultation, and there's still 3 to be consulted on, which is worrisome in terms of the time involvement that's just been rehearsed. I just wondered what level of confidence you have in resolving those serious concerns, and in anticipation, presumably, of further serious concerns emerging through the consultation process.
Thank you, Chair. Our main serious concerns have been around the mapping, and in particular, so I described measures as practical actions that they want to see. They're what will be mapped as part of the opportunities for future nature recovery, and the strong messaging from DEFRA to the responsible authorities has been that those measures should not be mapped on existing designated sites, which for us in the Peak District has been quite an issue, particularly for Blanket Bog, as we have considerable concerns that this may restrict funding in the future. We hope that we're wrong, but it may. So we've been working very closely with our partners locally and with the Natural England lead to try and resolve some of those issues. It has been taken nationally with DEFRA and Natural England, and we think we are probably about 90% of the way there in resolving that issue. There are still outstanding issues in terms of mapping, for example, clough woodland and tree planting, woodland creation on designated sites as well. But those are ongoing discussions, and we're quite confident that we can resolve those. The other significant concern is around the South Yorkshire LNRS. They've had some considerable problems in terms of interacting with their consultants and progress not being made, which is now being taken higher at Natural England and potentially through DEFRA as well.
I'm picking, just if I may, Chair, picking up on the comment that Simon made as well about the use of AI mapping. Presumably that has a role in the future?
We have been promoting the AI mapping. Unfortunately, again, the messaging that's been coming from DEFRA is to try and take a consistent approach across the whole of the county or unitary authority areas, which has been an issue because the AI mapping only covers the Peak District bit. So we have been promoting it. We have been asking them to use it and take it into consideration. But at the moment, we are struggling.
Thank you, Sarah. I wish you well on our behalf.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentations and the fulsome answers to our comments and questions. This is a recommendation for noting progress. So can I have a mover for that, please? Ken, and a seconder, Andy Nash. Thank you. All in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. And Sue and Sarah and Jackie and Rebecca, thank you very much for your presentations. And you're doing a lot, so it's awe-inspiring what you do. Thank you. If we could move on to item number 11 now, which is the second of our programmes that we understand and get under the bonnet of a little bit more. This one is the Welcoming Place AIM overview. And Sue, you're going to lead this again. And Lorna, I think you're going to be giving some of the presentation, and Sue, you are as well. And we also have welcome to Rob Kenning, who's sitting at the back of the room, who's the newly Ranger Team Manager. So welcome to your new role, Rob, even though you're not new to the park. Lorna, have you presented to Programmes and Resources before?
Yeah, I did this last.
Right, okay. And are you presenting in a new role or existing role?
Existing role.
Right, thank you. Thank you. Right, Sue, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So, again, this is your overview report on AIM3, the Welcoming Place. And I was just going to do a short scene setting again, if you like, for this, and then hand over to Laura, and she's going to look at some of our really leading, innovative projects around young people, diverse communities, health and wellbeing, and green pathways, and then I'll be followed by Sue, who, in reference to the earlier report this morning, where you made a decision, she will be giving examples of what has happened during this year's last year's 24-25 activities using that funding. So, as you know, the report summarises a range of activities through 24-25, but I just really wanted to put up there and recognise the impact that the organisational change has had on this team, really during the last quarter of 24-25 and now going forward as we implement the changes. So we're moving now from this core funded activity, engagement activity funding model to an externally funded model. And that's very challenging in this timescale that we've set ourselves. However, we are moving forward. We've now got the engagement programme manager appointed, and that will be Lorna from July. So congratulations to Lorna on that one. And I think the other aspect is just to say, and I'd like members to be aware of this, just during the consultation period, which was a very difficult period for the engagement team in particular, they really did come up with some real positive suggestions and really embrace this change of model, and so it has developed further. We've come up with 4 priority engagement projects. There's one at the Moreland Discovery Centre, which we're looking to shift. It's owned by the National Trust, so we're looking to shift from the partnership arrangement where we contributed half the funding to a model where they fund it all. We've got a transition year, and we're hoping, subject to their business case, that will move in that direction from the end of February 2026. We've got an opportunity for the Landscape Discovery Centre, that's the one at Longdendale, owned by the United Utilities, to continue there, and the Ambassadors building following the evaluation, which was one of the appendices, into moving forward with that project, and the same with community engagement, particularly with underserved audiences again. However, those last 3, we still haven't secured all the funding, but those are our top priorities. And once again, it's just worth mentioning there is a growing plethora of different sources of funding, from Severn Trent Water, all different small pots as well, for all this area of work. It is a complex picture, and it's great to have the help and the support of the Peak District Foundation. But I just thought that was useful in setting and recognising the tricky time it's been, to put it mildly, really. But we are getting through that. So over to Lorna to then do some of the celebration of the work of the engagement team.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, so can you all yeah, thank you. putting all of that aside, I'm here and I want to be here today to really look back at the year that we've had and celebrate the successes and the achievements of the team. Thank you, Sue. So this is the majority of the engagement team that really deliver on our diverse audience plan, which you'll all be familiar with. And the key areas of the diverse audience plan are around young people, health and well-being, and diverse communities, many of which are living with poverty, discrimination, or through disadvantage. And that's really the groups that we're intending to try and have the biggest impact to connect to our national park and really drive those messages to connect to nature for their well-being and learn about our special qualities and learn to help us support how they can take action to care for our special place. So that's the wonderful team. Thought it was nice just to touch on that. And this is what they've achieved over this last year. So with regards to young people, for the 10th year, we've achieved the Learning Outside the Classroom Quality Standard Badge. So that really just shows how they excel in their work. Really high quality and talks to those robust health and safety standards that Teresa spoke to about before, and the quality mark of connecting all of the work to the national curriculum to really help, whether it's nurseries through to A-levels, coming out and studying about our national park. So this past year, we've reached over 9,000 young people through school visits to the National Park, and they're through our 3 key centres, at Longdale, at Moorland Discovery Centre, and at Macclesfield Forest. Thankfully, we have got a continuation to carry on working in partnership and hand over that partnership with National Trust going forward. So we'll carry on that support at the Moorland Discovery Centre near Sheffield, and we're looking to see how we can secure funding to carry on our work at Longdale Centre as a really key centre that reaches the Greater Manchester and Tameside area. That centre celebrated its 25th year this year, which is, a really huge milestone. And they kind of look back and they've supported over 100,000 young people through visits to that centre. So it really had a huge impact to those areas which really do live in quite a lot of social deprivation. And some of the comments that come back from the young people visiting, are just like, wow, what a special place. Everywhere is so green, I feel really calm, and I can't believe a place like this exists. It's often their first time in nature, and we've all been there, we've all had that first experience ourselves, so I don't need to stick too much to how much impact that does have. So over this last year, like I say, we've been fully booked, had a plethora of experiences, and some real successes. We've also carried on with our pioneering projects. We had Jackie to kick off our ambassador schools before she moved over to working with Morridge Hill, and Francis took that work on. And so we have 20 ambassador schools, both within the park and within the surrounding area, and we continue to support those. And we've just had the evaluation, which you've got in the appendix to give you more information, and working with the foundation currently to look about how we can carry on with that work going forward, because we really see that as one of our key ways of engaging with our schools. And we've also had our second project with Access Unlimited, led by YHA. That's the Access to Nature project, where we've had engagements of over 400 young people. And we're working now on our expression of interest for Generation Green 3. So really showing how we've kind of got a breadth of scale there, from working at a very local level with local schools through Access to Ambassador Schools, to working nationally with multi-partnerships through Generation Green. Thank you, Sue. Diverse communities is another key area of our work. So just picked out some key projects here, because we do a lot of different community work, but the delivery of Champion National Parks for Everyone has obviously been a real standout example, and I'm sure Yvonne can speak to that more. The successes that we're having is superb through that project. So the delivery phase began within this year, and from October we've had a project officer, Andrea, leading on that work, and it's just been superb. It's been hard work to really engage with groups and really think about how we recruit our community champions, how we recruit staff, how we recruit volunteers, and try and challenge ourselves to do things differently, to really make an impact and diversify our workforce and our volunteering roles as well. But we've achieved all that, and we've we're running our first cohort of champion training, and we've booked all of our monthly activities, and we're getting really great feedback so far from the funders and from all of the cohort experiencing that. So that'll go on until March next year. So next year you'll hear us giving a fuller summary and what we're going to do forward with that, because part of that project is also looking at the kind of the legacy and the next steps for Peak District Mosaic and for this project going forward. So hopefully there'll be more of that. And another key piece of work is working with National Parks UK and I always end up forgetting this name. I'm writing it down. Protected Landscape Partnerships. Don't know why, it doesn't stick in my head. Anyway, we're looking at joint working to create a shared vision of belonging to our national parks, and we've done a lot of community consultation of this, and we've now developed 10 principles, and we're working to now consider what are our next steps. How do we use that toolkit to really inform our way of working going forward. Had a great workshop led by Zahid, former member, and he led a workshop on equity of access and diversity and inclusion in national parks. So we're really pulling together to think about how we put that into our funding applications going forward. So you'll hear a lot more about environmental social justice, so kind of the terms that we're starting to use a lot more in that area. So these are images you see there in the circles. There's some of the design work that the community's created to kind of represent some of these 10 principles. And there's also a picture there of Dal, who was our Black Nature in Residence. Again, a really pioneering, different approach to us, had a writer in residence that did a lot of community work as well. So they're just some of the diverse community areas. And our health and well-being. So within our diverse audience plan, we work to these 3 titles: prevent, restore and excel. So within our prevent model, we have been developing and relaunching our nature prescription, which we work in conjunction with RSPB. I didn't actually give a copy in the appendix because it wasn't ready at the time, but it's hot off the press now. So there is a copy here if anyone wants any bedtime reading, or a nice month by month what to do to keep yourself connected to nature. So we're launching that on the 2nd of June, so you'll hear more about that in time. And again, we're looking at that great resource to build in as a legacy into future work going forward. Also done a lot of work around developing volunteer pathways, building skills, either with volunteers or community leaders, knowing that as a team our capacity is reduced, but what can we do to skill up people to really make sure these resources are used going forward. So that's what those members of staff have been busy doing. We've also been trialling different approaches, seeing kind of where we can have the biggest impact, because it's only really been the last 2 years since we've had the community wellbeing ranges. So we've been trialling different approaches, seeing what works, evaluating those. I've had some really great successes with family events at Macclesfield Forest and collaborating with PPCV to think about how we can build more wellbeing activities into our practical conservation offer. So that's within our Restore. And within our Excel, we had a project funded by BMW, Recharging Nature, and we had a project officer, Rachel, and a trainee, Kate, who just finished in March, and were just absolutely superb, a real inspiration, both of them to the team. They've provided support and guidance to community groups around health and well-being. They've also built loads of new connections, especially around those southern communities of the national park. Again, skilling up community leaders and delivering health walk training, etc., and creating a beautiful resource, which I did send around as one of the attendees, this Welcome to the Peaks of Health. So again, it's a series of walks, a series of guides that people can now take and deliver themselves as a toolkit. So all of our work tends to try and work to that model to skill up others as a legacy to deliver themselves. So that'll be another one we'll be looking at how we can kind of utilise that work to take that forward and the learning around that. And already we're building that into some of our funding with Severn Trent and looking at how we can carry on the work with some of those community groups. We had real successes with community groups in LGBTQ+ communities and with young carers. So some really different groups for us to kind of carry on seeing how we could support them. And finally, our green pathways. So going through all of our diverse audience work is a real need to skill people up and think about how we sustain this into the future. Young people, many of you heard me recently talking about our youth voice, and we're thinking about how to get the pathway to really empower people to have that voice and take green action themselves at whatever level is appropriate to them. So this is our model that we're working to. So we have our junior rangers as our gateway, and we've had successful groups continuing over the last year, and now we're obviously having to really review that to think about how we'll deliver that going forward, and it'll be a piece myself and Rob work with the rangers to think how we do that. So we've got our junior rangers through to our green leaders. That has absolutely excelled with the work of Clara and PPCV this year, and again, as another piece that we'll be thinking without Pete supporting that work, how do we get that to go forward and carry on that momentum? And there's also a gap we've got between junior rangers and green leaders. We've got a bit of an age, 16 to 18-year-olds we need to look at. So that's, again, another priority area. We've also had our brilliant trainees. That's Clara and Kate, you can see there. And we're going to have Nafisa joining our Champion National Parks project as a trainee very soon, so that's exciting. And now we've got our youth voice, our Youth Impact Collective, which we've got our workshop tomorrow for those that are attending. So I just wanted to demonstrate that, how we're looking at all the diverse audience work with that thread running through it about how to create those pathways for people to kind of skill themselves up and think about how they can get involved and take their action themselves. And I think that is about all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just before I start, I'd just like to say thank you, everyone, for approving funding for Year 4. It has been a sheer joy to deliver on this, to be able to make a difference, and to know that we are giving others the joy in accessing the national park. So I'm going to the first slide. So this is our 4th year that we're heading into now. Year 1, we spent. Year 2, no funding, but we still delivered through Accessible Castleton, which some of you viewed last year. Year 3, we've had funding, we spent that, but we also drew an additional funding as well from the foundation of 26.2k, so we spent more than that, and let's see what happens in Year 4. So it's for the removal of barriers to access to make protected landscapes places for everyone. It is capital funding, so it deals with the creation or acquisition of assets. Accessibility is at the heart of the authority's work, and the funding has been used to create more miles, places and mobility so that everyone feels welcome. I've got some props with my presentation as well. So the welcome guide, somewhere for you, somewhere for everyone. Look through each page and you will find something that we've delivered for accessibility. Next, please. Year 3 delivery. So quick bullet point summary. Although when you see the scale, it's big. So the first one is a changing place. That's to the same design as Millersdale. So a twin for Millersdale, a sister site. You'll see a picture of it next. It's lovely. We've been revamping and ramping a weighbridge and a hut along the Tissington and High Peak trails. There's improved trail access and seating, an extended and a new Miles Without Styles route, better accessible gates, tactile you are here and can go to here, and 11 fast-charging e-bikes to allow for shorter hires and to accompany the trampers and inclusive cycles that we acquired in Year 1. Okay, so the more places. Top left, that's now at Parsley Hay. That's now open. A view of a loo for you. Next one, accessible camping at North Lees. So we've had the pod previously, but what we've provided is new ramping and to the washing up facilities. The washing up facilities have now been lowered, so they're accessible for everyone. Follow that ramp round, and it will take you to an easy access door. Just press the button, opens wide. We've got a hoist in there and shower facilities. So that links directly to the changing place. So it's all within one space up at North Lees. On the bottom, that's the Countryside Maintenance Property Support Team working on one of the former weighbridges. That's at Hurdlow. Middle one is at Ruby Wood. So that's our anniversary wood. Just off the trails south of Hartington Station, and this middle one is in between Parsley Hay and Hartington Station. And what we've done with that, we've put railing in to provide additional support and ramped it so people on trampers hired from Parsley Hay can stop there, because when you go on a tramper, unlike a bike, you can get a bit chilly. So we've got that halfway stopping point for those who want to take a break and get a little bit further. And sometimes it is just a step. So the ramps that we've been putting in, just that step stops people from just getting that shelter. So it can make a big difference. Top left, again, that's our amazing team out on site in a very sensitive landscape, dealing sensitively with the access improvements there. It's actually extended the Goyt Miles Without Styles route by double. We've also got Hurdlow, where we did some widening and resurfacing, so just beyond the weighbridge, and that's the volunteers doing some tidying up of the verges afterwards, so our trails look as lovely as ever. And I spend a lot of time looking at gates, so you've got 2 photos of gates for here. So the one on the left is a 2-in-1 gate. So that will allow vehicle access, but also make it easy. Vehicle access needed for fires, that side of things, but it also makes it easier for people to access along that track. And on the right-hand side, we took out a kissing gate. So it's a wide kissing gate, but still, even with the wide kissing gate, you have to manoeuvre. And so with that one, just straight through. And what we're looking at doing is making that a permissive bridle way as well. Now, that's an important key route for access. I'm very pleased that we can open it up to other forms of use as well. And Miles Without Styles, second prop there. And my final, so that's our first handbook. All the amounts raised from sales of that handbook go back into maintaining our Miles Without Styles route. I think we can look at another 20 routes this year and another handbook. The more mobility side of things, so access, accessibility and active travel, and the information needed for that as well. So along the Tissington Trail shows all the facilities and linking in between each of the locations there. Trails are one of our very key routes for linking places. They're like our motorways of access, effectively, for who can use them and to the standard they are. And bikes along here, available at Parsley Hay and Ashbourne. The bottom ones are e-bikes, and what the e-bikes will allow us to do, as I've mentioned before, is accompany the others, use trampers, etc. But what we're looking at in the future is more cycle hire mobility as well. So possibly residences in other locations might be one way to call it. Residences really pop-up cycle hire. And just to let you know that we're going to be trialling it out on a large scale next Wednesday, when the DEFRA team are coming out to have a look at the Access for funding, what's been delivered. They're visiting Castleton. They want to see accessible Castleton. We're bringing over bikes, e-bikes. Everyone's having the opportunity to take an e-bike trip over to Castleton using the equipment from a number of the cycle hires. And my final prop, which I'll just leave for you to have a look at, is the new interpretation panels and the fact that they're tactile. And they're for everyone. We've seen people along the trail that are tracing it and seeing that between Minninglow and Middleton Top is 6.5 miles, and it tells you how long it will take as well. Okay, so I'll pass that round and collect it later. Okay, thank you.
Sue, a summary?
Well, I think that just shows the range of work that goes on, and we haven't this time done a presentation just from a pure Rangers perspective either, because of the change of leadership that we're just going through, so that will be another aspect next time too. But again, this is the recommendation that we've got in the report for you. So open to questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you both, for Lorna and Sue, for your presentations. And I mean, I think we as members are very aware of the organisational changes. And so on behalf of members, I do appreciate the work that has been done by the team in everything that's been achieved and delivered over the last few years. It really is very impressive. And I also note, as you mentioned, Sue, that we seem to be moving towards a provision of capital funding rather than having it within our own revenue stream, which is a different way of doing things that hopefully we can respond positively and productively to. It's open to members for questions and comments. James first.
Thank you. I mean, there's a huge amount here to be proud of, and it gives us, I think, great reputational value. I only wish that our colleagues in Campaign for National Parks England reflected some of this excellent work we do rather than criticising us for not doing any of this work. Anyway, I shall set aside my jaundiced view, because I think there's a terrific amount of excellent work in here. And, you know, some of the evaluation that we've talked about, a number of these papers, does begin to appear in each of these projects, which I think is really welcome. How that translates to our effectiveness in delivery of the management plan is a different matter, but if you look at the evaluation for peak health, I think, you know, that's exactly the sort of in-depth view we need to know in terms of cause and effect. It's also an honest review, I think. Quite clearly, the Peak District Proud campaign didn't work. And, you know, I think we recognise that. I think we need to be a little bit smarter in how we communicate this is a welcoming place in future. And I think that just leads me to my last point, which is, you know, there are a series of terrific success stories here, Mosaic, Peak Health, etc., etc. And I think we are evaluating those in the right way. My question for the future, and I think for the National Park Management Plan, we are going to find it difficult in moving to an external funding model. It ain't easy, but I know the work, as Ruth and I know from the Foundation, the work that Lorna is doing, trying to encourage the Foundation, which they are supporting, money to do and support outreach work. But overall, is it possible to measure our ambition to make this national park a more welcoming place? And I'm not sure that we have the resource or the capacity or the ability necessarily to do that, because that's everybody's job. It's not just our job. It's the National Trust, it's the shopkeeper in Bakewell, it's the bus driver. It's everybody's job to make this a more welcoming place. And I think we have to be realistic in terms of the management plan as to what we can actually do. And that's a future consideration. But that's not to diminish the work that has already been done. And I hope we can continue doing it, albeit through a different model. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Sue, do you want to comment on that? Phil, would you like to comment on that? You've been very quiet this morning.
Yeah, well, pretty much agree with what James said, really. I think we've got huge ambition for this. I think you've seen that we are actually delivering a lot. Stuff that's in our control, we're delivering really well. Take James's point, though. You know, the National Park is a huge place with lots of actors and players involved, and for it to be really welcoming, there needs to be all sorts of things. There needs to be the infrastructure, there needs to be the transport, there needs to be the knowledge in people around the park who might want to access it and how they can. So there's lots of factors. From what I've seen, though, I think there isn't that much more we can be doing with the resources we've got on the things that we've got control over. I think the point about the capital funding coming in, Sue has done a brilliant job in delivering this capital money. But the capital money doesn't pay Sue's salary and people like Sue, and doesn't pay the accounts people who have to process all the payments. And this is, the ongoing case we're making for core funding to allow us to do all of this great work with capital that's being provided.
Yeah, I accept that none of that's easy, and the stress and strain on our budget is going to be even more difficult if we don't get the sort of flexibility to support the likes of Sue and Lorna in their work. I get that completely, and I think there's just one final thing. It is referenced in here, the Tourism Charter, and I know that's going to the May Committee, and I know that it is your intention to begin to bring in other partners so they accept that Tourism Charter. There's a fine balance in that, actually, in not making this an unwelcome place too. We're going to have to stop people misbehaving or behaving badly or not respecting the environment, but equally we don't want to turn people off from coming here. So I think our real challenge in future is targeting those folks who don't currently come and making this a welcoming place for them. That's the real challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob, I think you're signalling you'd like to respond to James's comment. Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's
Sorry.
All good so far.
Thanks. My name's Rob Kenny. I'm just 3 weeks into the Ranger Service role, but I have previously been a Ranger, so that's some consolation. Just the point about the welcome visitors. I think it's been pretty clear. I've been brought in really to kind of take a few months to review the Ranger Service to see how we can be fit for purpose for the future. And the comments about sort of visitor pressure and where we're at, and there's questions about data and how we record our impact. The Ranger Service has some time to reflect now on these things. I know the National Trust, if we look at MAM Tour, they have this anonymous phone data. 1.2 million people went up MAM Tour last year. Phil mentioned about a resource. We've got one ranger for the Edale area, and they've got about 6 active volunteer rangers. Most of those people are over the age of 60, and we're not really comfortable putting those folk in a position where they're having to deal with sort of big car park issues. And you look at the enforcement, there's 200 enforcement tickets going out on a quiet March weekend. So we've got a real reflection piece now to think about as a ranger service. How do we best work with these people on the ground, given the fact that the first person you see representing the park as a visitor will probably be a ranger, and as a landowner and as a resident, the person you might come and speak to on the ground will be a ranger. So how can we best provide that service and create value for people in and outside the park? We don't have the answers yet, but I've just taken this opportunity. If any of you have perspectives on how the Ranger Service adds value, how the Ranger Service could add value that it doesn't already, I'd be really welcome to hearing from you, an email, a phone call, or however you want to talk about that, because there's a variety of experience around the room. I'm doing that with colleagues. I'm doing that with visitors when I see them. So I'd invite you to do that, because we've got a few months ahead of us with some very challenging questions, and it would be great to have your input. Thank you.
Rob, thank you, and expect a tsunami of contact outside of this meeting. Thank you. I've got Charlotte and then Yvonne, and then Simon. Thank you.
Thanks. I was actually going to raise that sort of same dichotomy that James has just said about the welcoming places and the impact of visitors. So that's already been addressed, but I also wanted to thank Sue for all her work and just say that you really can't underestimate the importance, as I live with a wheelchair user, that access makes to people, and particularly getting rid of gates. It's bane of my life. So I just want to thank you.
Thank you for that, Charlotte. I was going to, just as a follow-up to that, Ken, I'll put you on the list. Follow-up to that, what is the public feedback for the Miles Without Styles and accessibility? Do we get people telling us they're really pleased? Have we got that evidence base?
Yeah, the Miles Without Styles web pages take currently just under 10% of all the website traffic. Mm. We're into the second print run of the Miles Without Styles handbook. We do receive feedback through our visitor centres, cycle house centres, groups taking out, and every so often I get emails direct to customer service asking where people can go, but we try and put as much information as we can on the website as well. Accessible Castleton, I think I'd echo what Charlotte was saying. When we did the filming for that, because the BBC ran an article on it, one of the wheelchair users, Gary, said he thanked us. He said, "You don't know how much of a difference this can make," and we certainly know from the involvement of our local access forums, so the statutory advisors on access. Somebody said sometimes just a curb is just what stops you. So it's finding ways that that we can give people the information that they need, the things that they want to do, and linking with that. So yes,
thank you.
Keep on monitoring.
Thank you, Sue, and thank you for your feedback as well, Charlotte. Yvonne.
Thank you, Chair. Where do I start? I just want to say thank you to the engagement team. Thank you, Lorna, for that presentation, and for Sue as well. I have known a lot of the engagement team members, staff, for many years, and it's a big gap in the organisation with some of them who have to go or have decided to go. And I think James has said it quite well, and I did say to Lorna I wasn't going to say anything, but I think I have to say something, because I think I am here because some reasons being that my involvement with the engagement team as a community champion since 2008, and I think that has helped me to understand about the national park, encourage others to visit the national park, and working with rangers to get more people, not from Sheffield only, but from Birmingham and Manchester, doing different activities. And a lot of groups have signposted to the engagement team, especially Pete Bush, and I do have admiration for the engagement team. And I hope with the limited resources, officers, that we can achieve some of the outcome. I think it's going to be difficult, and I did raise this with Ken and Phil in terms of the welcome place and the objectives and what we need to achieve in saying that we have a national plan that will focus on different aspects of community and for us to see a positive outcome. We've got volunteer rangers, and I just wonder how much we can utilize those volunteer rangers to cover some of these roles that we've got. And Rob, I'll be coming to you. I'm first on your list. And I just hope whoever is taking on, some of these roles, they might be merged together or whatever, that we'll support them and they'll have a supporting team to work with them in managing and achieving the outcome that we'd like to see for the national park. Thank you.
Yvonne, thank you for very heartfelt set of comments there, and I'm sure the engagement team will be very much appreciative of that. And do get in touch with Rob to talk particularly about your thoughts going forward. So thank you very much for that. Simon.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, really also following up on James's comments about this rather difficult message that we're trying to communicate. and not making it an unwelcome place simply because we're trying to change certain undesirable behaviours. And obviously, the best way to do that is using Rob and rangers and so on, but that is not scalable. And even though Peak District Proud didn't work, we just because of the constraints we have, I think we've got to re-examine whether there are other social media, other communications channels that are scalable that we can use just as a more effective utilisation of the resources that we have.
Thank you. Yeah, Lorna, do you want to?
Thank you for that comment, Simon. I think with our aspects like Youth Voice going forward, I really hope that's going to be a new platform for us to have a different voice and voices that we certainly in this room are not going to reach. I am not youthful anymore, and I am going to soak in their youth.
Don't worry,
I certainly don't feel it, but thank you, Janet. We need diversity of voices, don't we, to speak to our visitors of this national park and the users of our national parks. I think going back to your comments of needing to go out to people who currently don't engage with us and may visit, but they don't engage with the national park. So that's really where the projects that we need to prioritise and the work that, I need to do with Rob and with the volunteer teams to really think about, the resources of the teams that we do have working here. We need to use their voices, don't we? And we need to see what platforms they can use for sure. I think the work that we're doing with the Champion National Parks is really a great start for that. We've now got, the start of a great network of community champions that we didn't have before that can reach out into their local communities. They can really have that local impact. So you're right. I think we need to explore those new ways, and we are making a start on that.
Thank you. And Sue?
Thanks, Chair. Just picking up on the Peak District Proud, we had scheduled that in to start reviewing that, but with the organisational change, that's had to go on hold. It is something we need to pick up and take the learnings from the social listening test. Perhaps it didn't give us all the answers, but that's the area I think we do need to look at. And I think the other aspect is, which I've been talking to Rob about already and others, is about reviewing our partnership approach, and sometimes it might be moving more towards a virtual team and how we might be able to move that forward. Not easy, but I think we've got to look there. And also, what I particularly like, for example, about the Ambassador Schools project and that evaluation is working more, which is in the diverse audience plan already, working more to that intelligent client model, where it's training others to do what we would normally, in a traditional way, perhaps have done. But it does mean we will need, and we haven't done this piece of work yet, to review the activities in the authority plan going forward and the activities that we feel we can deliver or be part of in the National Park Management Plan. So again, we haven't done that yet. We're at that point now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ken Rustage is next on my list.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I particularly like the idea of these the trails, mountain bikes and so forth. I mean, it's so dangerous now you see lots of bikes on the road out there, but these trails, much safer. I just wonder if there's any further trails planned. I'm thinking of something like the Roaches, and you've got Stanton in the Peak, Saddleworth, more places like that. Have you got any plans going forward to possibly get more in the future? Thank you.
I think it's about 2 weeks' time. Yeah, so the May Authority meeting, we will be bringing a report to members on the active travel plan. This was funding that we received 12 months ago from Active Travel England that has been funding given to all of the 10 English national parks. And we've been working away in partnership through all the consultations with our highway authorities, working with major landowners, working very closely with the Local Access Forum. So there was a consultation earlier on this year, and as part of that, we're developing our plan for our high-level strategic network. It will comprise our trails, and it's looking to see how we can link those, how we can extend those and link in with other key access routes. That's just the stage one. So it would be nice to develop that further, but that will be subject to further funding. We're waiting to see how we can progress with that.
Yes, that's a teaser for authority on the 9th of May. The second teaser you've had to come to authority on the 9th of May we've had in this meeting so far. Charles.
Yeah, I think with all the organisational changes and impacts, I think I have a lot of concern over what effect that would have on the engagement work. And it's great to have heard and seen what's been going on, but I do feel encouraged for the future. I really do. I think there's a long way to go with it. But I think, I think it's a really important part of our work, and getting that balance right as well is never an easy one. As we've already started at my end of the park with our season of fires upon the moors. You know, it seems so early in the year for it, but anyway. My question really is around the North Lees facility. So North Lees is a tricky site. So besides the pod, is there anything else that's gone in with that just to make it a bit more manageable? Is there some new trails, or can you get a tramper up there so that people can get out and about in that area as well?
Thankfully, we've now got Year 4 funding, so that enables us to do a little bit more. One of the things we were discussing last year was just keeping a all-terrain wheelchair on site, so that would be free to use. At the moment, we would direct people to where the trampers are available, but potentially what we can start to explore is, if someone wants to book a tramper, could we deliver the tramper to them? You know, it may be an option. In terms of other trails, then as part of our report to authority in a couple of weeks' time, we are identifying a route which runs across from Manchester to Sheffield. So our central line, basically, and that will link in with North Lees as well.
Thanks, Sue. Ken Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Inevitably, perhaps picking up on the general point that James was making, but also Sue in part, referred to ambassador schools, which I think has been a bit of a poor relation in the comments that have been made. All the positive comments have been made, but I was particularly taken with the feedback from the schools and the teachers, and it was summarised inevitably in the final paragraph on page 16 of the report, page 107, where it refers particularly to urban schools, and one of the things about the welcome element, I think, is also in the ways in which we might influence behaviours. And it struck me that a lot of the emphasis, and quite reasonably, has been to date through the ambassador schools in getting people to understand the national park, and that's resulted in it being included in particularly the geography curricula. And that element is understanding, if you like, the physical, it seems to me, the physical, perhaps some of the social, some of the population elements of the national park, but not in, it doesn't appear to be including things about behaviour in the national park, and that's part of the welcome, it seems to me. And as an aside, and it does come back to where I think I'm going. Yesterday, Phil and I attended the 60th anniversary of the launch of the Pennine Way at Hawes in the Yorkshire Dales National Park. And Phil, we gave a lift to Andrew McCloy, who is now chair of CMP. And we had some discussions about things various, but one of them was about behaviours and the ways in which one might be able to influence the ways that young people particularly access information about the national park, access information about how to behave, access information about how to navigate physically through the national park landscapes. And it does seem to me that whilst, yes, we've focused inevitably on the resource reductions that we've had, the organisational changes and their impacts, but I think one of the opportunities, as Charles has said, they are there, and is partnerships. And it might be that in Andrew's case, he was talking about developments that the YHA are making And it does seem to me that we can't operate alone. We've got to explore not just opportunities that enable us to welcome people and enable people to understand and enjoy the national park. We've got to understand what others are doing and engage with them to enhance their product, our product, so that the sum is greater than the value of the parts.
Thank you. Sue, can you comment? There's a couple of particular things in there. One is the ambassador schools. It looks really at awareness rather than behaviour on the so what question. Once you know about it, so what does that mean? In terms of, does it change behaviour, or is it too difficult to measure that? And the second one is approach to partnerships, and the thought about that. And Ken, I was expecting you to say that you're expecting to see awareness of and understanding of the cultural heritage aspects of the national park in the, say, history curriculum.
I did highlight the bit that talked about I think it's the 25-year environment plan that talks about beauty, and it only mentioned nature, and it didn't mention culture.
You're going to let it go for today.
No, I can't.
Well done. Sue, can you comment about behaviour and partnerships?
I'm going to ask Lorna to comment on that one from schools, and I'll come back to the second.
Sure.
So obviously within the evaluation, it doesn't cover all of the resources that have been created for ambassador schools, and the resources and the content of the school delivery visits, whether it's an assembly in the school or when they come out to us, very much concentrate on the care messages. It's all wrapped around, come, connect, enjoy a place, connect to a place, care for a place. Those principles and that learning journey kind of underbeds every element of our engagement work, and it is heavily seen in the ambassador school work. And some of our projects, when we've had some funding, such as the youth hostel work with Generation Green, we've done a lot of our Green Action Days, which have been days where young people have then been able to come out and take some social action themselves, whether that's litter picking or joining up with PPCV and doing some conservation work, and practically getting their hands dirty to think about how to care for some of that work. And we also do some school days where we actually look at sustainable tourism and really identify what are the challenges to looking after a national park, and they're with GCSE and A-level students. So definitely some of those contents of caring for the national park. But schools are a captive audience where we can get those messages for care, which is why it's so important we do what we can to carry on working with young people through schools as much as possible, which is why some of the organisational changes have been hard hitting, because in my opinion we talk about a welcoming place, we talk about caring for the park. If we don't start doing that with the young generation, how does anyone know how to do any of that? So we do need to work to that. Getting others involved and partners, we also have ambassador centres. Now, I'm not sure what the future of ambassador centres is. It might be something we have to let go of. But that's when we work with outdoor providers like the YHA, Thornbridge Outdoors, etc. And we pass on our messages of care and national park special qualities, so they can then spread that message further to their users. So we are going to have to reconsider how to, what capacity or how can we deliver some of those messages through partners.
Thank you. And Sue, the partnership approach.
Yes, partnerships, it's going to be increasingly important, because it's not going to work if different partners are giving different messages. The more consistent that messaging, and that's across the whole piece, not just engagement or Rangers or London Nature or VIP or whatever it might be, we've got to work. And that is hard. It is a hard task because of the regionality we've got with 6 different setups, and it's each organisation at the various levels, whether it's the YHA that we've mentioned, whether it's the water companies, they all work in different areas. I think that's going to have to be a really big area of search for us going forward. And also that national organisation opportunity. So we know DEFRA wants us to think more about a protected landscape level, but we've got a lot of organisations. We've got the Protected Landscape Partnership, we've got National Parks Partnership. We're doing a lot more work with them now in terms of actually getting support from them, and National Parks England. So, but I think it's also about that sharing of products, like that marvellous Peaks of Health, the prescription stuff. We need to be better at that collaboration and sharing across the piece, I think. So And I'm quite attracted with developing this virtual team working because, in the past we've had more funding from water companies, then they've got their own rangers, National Trust have more rangers. It works well in certain areas, perhaps less well in others. So I think that's the whole area of scope for us to focus on going forward.
Yeah. And I think there's obviously issues to do with all these organisations are constrained as we are in terms of funding. But I also get a sense out in the sort of wider sector, in my work with the National Trust, that they are wanting also to move to partnership models and recognising it's the way forward for everybody to be working. So I think we're going to be pushing at an open door and to get more bang for our bucks by working collectively. James, final
point.
James will make a point and then I'll let Charlotte have the final point.
The penultimate point.
Penultimate point.
I feel a bit mean-spirited about my comments about Peak District Proud. I'm sure the intentions were there, it just the delivery didn't work. So I think, given this is a review of the principles of the management plan and so forth, and this will be the last P&R meeting, I think, won't it?
No, there's 5th
There's
of
one
July.
more, is there? Okay. I would ask, one of the future things that we need to do is to resurrect the comms plan and resurrect our view of the comms plan. Now, I know we've depressed ourselves heartily today by talking about cuts and our ability to do certain things. But, taking a nod from that which Simon said about scalable, if 1.2 million people are going up manned tour on the basis of some TikTok malarkey, shows how down with the kids I am. Surely we'd be able to use social media in a more imaginative, connected way. And I hope that when you do have the time and the abilities to review the comms strategy, that we think about social media and using young people to influence our social media. But at the same time, with the comms strategy, let's not forget that close targeting. Not everybody wants the same message. Different people want different messages to encourage them to this welcoming place. So hopefully, Phil, you'll be able to bring a renewed comms strategy back to the authority, to maybe even PNR or son of or daughter of in the future.
So do you just want to say anything other than noted, Phil?
It's a good point. It's one of those areas of work that's been put on hold because of the cuts we're going through. And we haven't actually got to the other side of that yet. I think we haven't yet even been able to catch our breath to work out how are we going to reshape the comms plan with a reduced comms resource. It definitely needs doing. The technology, I wouldn't say the technology is changing, the way it's being used is changing as well. So even if we had a pre-existing plan, we're probably going to need to look at that now with what we're finding out about how the park's being used and how people are accessing their information. So yeah, it's really live. We can't not do it, but we can't take the kind of cuts we've had and keep doing the same amount of stuff. So we may have to look to other people helping us deliver some of the stuff we might have delivered in terms of comms.
I'm really not wishing to heap more coals on you, Phil. I'm really not. I think if one is fleet of foot when these things, the changes have bedded down, you will be able to do things differently fairly easily. But as we're all saying, it's working with other folks too. So,
thank you for raising an additional challenge, James. Really appreciate that. Charlotte.
It was just talking about engagement and with other groups, because this is the weekend of the anniversary of the Kinder Trespass, and I know there's a lot of Right to Roam groups, Right to Swim groups that are planning activities, and I just wonder whether we engage with them, and if we could engage with them positively, what that might be beneficial to us, rather than, getting down on them.
Sue, do you want to try and comment on that?
I don't think we ever sort of get down on them so much. I hope we don't. But
What does that
yeah,
mean?
In the past, yeah, we certainly have, and we've done joint events at certain anniversaries. There has been some work about right to water. I'm not aware of anything joint activity-wise at the moment with this. No, yes.
Going up Kinder.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I meant in terms of that we're actually involved in on this occasion.
To swim in the River Wye was a very short-lived experience.
But it's a point that it is the sort of thing we'd like to do, but again, it's just we've got to rebalance where we go with all this right now, I think.
Yeah, it's a case of sort of prioritising and seeing where things land. Right, I think we've had a fulsome set of discussions here. I think it's been really helpful, and I'd like to move us towards the recommendation, which is noting the extensive amount of work that's been done and the extensive amount that's been achieved by this area over the last 12 months, recognising going forward there's going to be constraints on achievement and delivery. But can I ask a member to move the recommendation, please? Ken Smith, thank you, and Charles to second it. All in favour of the recommendation, which is merely to note the progress in this area, thank you. Anyone against any abstentions? Okay, thank you very much. And that is the end of the meeting. So thank you ever so much, everybody, for your participation and your discussions this morning. It's been a long meeting with a lot of information in it, and really appreciate you staying with it, and I know the officers appreciate the work that we as members do in helping them think through